All right, we'll get started. Representative Fiddler's going to open up in prayer, and Teresa do the roll.
Dear Lord, thank you for the bringing us together here, and we just ask for your blessings and be with our colleague, Representative Jackson, as he heals, dear Lord, and please give us wisdom and this body wisdom, and so that we can do your service. In your name we pray. Amen.
Mr. Treadaway? Here. Mr. Stringer?
Here.
Mr. Jackson? Mr. Consor?
Here.
Mr. Bolton? Here. Mr. England? Mr. Estes? Ms. Fittler? Here. Mr. Gray?
Here.
Mr. Harbison? Ms. Morris? Mr. Pettis? Ms. Shaver? Here. Mr. Starnes? Here. Mr. Wadsworth? Here. A quorum is present.
All right, we have a quorum. I appreciate everybody showing up today. I know it was a late night. We have one bill, and that's Senate Bill 249, and that's Senator Carnley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee, for showing up for one bill. I know that's probably not the place I want to be, is bringing you all here early on the morning after a late night. So what this bill does is, I have a small Creek Indian tribe in the very western edge of Coffee County. It's the Machis Indian tribe. They work with Mr. Perdue back there, and he approached me early in the session about a bill that would mirror what the Mowa Indian tribe has. Senator Williams, which was Representative Williams at the time, passed back in '99 for them. And what it does is, I know the big thing in this is the authorization of policing power. I did speak to OTHNI and LSA just to verify that this is not giving them anything that would supersede what the local authorities have currently. Coffee County Sheriff is over that. It doesn't preclude the sheriff from entering the property and doing anything that they currently can do. They have to abide by Alabama laws. They can't create laws or supersede the laws that are there. But it does offer them the ability, if they choose. It doesn't, require them. It gives no funding. But if they choose or elect to hire policing authority for an event, or if they wanted to hire one to monitor their property at certain times for trespassers or whatever's going on the property, they could do that. No one lives on this property. They have a building which is like the community center. Some of the things that they want to do is eventually have like a burial ground, as well as a potential health clinic on the property. There is some information in here that also, in this bill, in the definitions, it defines reservation, which is really what they, are looking to add to this as well, so they can be defined as a reservation. They are only a state recognized tribe, will never be a federally recognized tribe. I know in the Senate there was questions, well, are they trying to get into gaming? Can't do it, because you got to be federally recognized for that. They never will be. And doing some of the research on this, and I talked to Representative Stringer this morning, because he had mentioned some of the things that he had experienced through the MOAs, and I'm agreeable if there's ways that we can, try to keep that from happening. If you've got suggestions, I'm not law enforcement, but I'd be, favorable to anything that could, kind of secure your concerns. But this is not a new precedence for police power. I worked and looked back in section 1622(1). Basically lists most every college that we've got has been given the same policing authority. We have a few private academies like Madison Academy, Briarwood Presbyterian Church, that were added to this, through amendments over time. So, it's not something new, but this is something that they're seeking, and that's basically encapsulates what this bill does. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, or try to.
Is there any questions from any members of the committee? Representative Wadsworth?
So, I'm sorry, I didn't. Right. So I've talked to our sheriff, our current sheriff. He's fine with this, and he's willing to accept the prisoners that they have. I can't speak to, how that, that was one of the concerns. I know that dynamic changes if a sheriff changes, or if you run into issues with the police that are out there. At the current time of the current situation, they've agreed and they don't have an issue with it. And that was some of the questions about, okay, well, what law do they follow, or what jurisdiction are they under when it comes to arrest, and what court do they I mean, it would just be like if the sheriff showed up out there and arrested somebody. But, at the current time, the sheriff says that he's agreeable with this. Obviously, they don't foresee any, rash of arrest or issues out there. Some of their concern was like if they had a powwow, or if they had, currently they just have to call the sheriff. They're on the very far end of the county. It's very remote. So they felt like if they had somebody that was there and somebody was trespassing on the property, or, just milling around trying to see what was going on that didn't have authority, that they would have somebody there that could discourage that. But, at this time, I don't think they have a big issue with crime out there.
Representative Betzel.
Yes, all very interesting. I was looking forward to hearing you speak a little bit more about it. So it's helpful to know, and maybe some of my ignorance, the difference between a state-recognized tribe and federal. I would assume, since they're a state-recognized tribe, are the lands, their reservation, is it also a state-deeded property, or is this federal? And so it gets into there, are we talking about them enforcing federal law on their own tribal land, or is it state law?
It's state. But they own the property, so it's not state property. The tribe actually owns that property. Nothing changes as far as ownership. And I'm not an expert on this. I've just learned through this process. But, any law that's in place, whether it's federal or state, everybody's still subject to. Again, this reservation doesn't give anyone protection any more than they would have, a foot over that reservation line. So they would still be there and have that same law, but they can enforce the state part, and that's it. If there was any kind of federal crime going on, they would have to involve the federal authorities.
And I realize, based off your description, some of what I'm thinking is really long-term. If this is a small area, they don't have people living on the grounds. But when we do talk about the duties and responsibilities of the sheriff, is one of the largest, if not the largest, is to run the jail. And there is a certain amount of funding that all sheriffs get for the feeding of their inmates. And so and that would become problematic, I guess, if you had if it was federal charges, if they were able to enforce that, if that's what we were talking about. So that's kind of the basis of that question, because I want to make sure, because then some way our budgets here, send money to the sheriffs for that, as far as in terms, if the Coffee County Sheriff has no problems with this, the current sheriff, that would be one of my bigger concerns, is make sure that this wasn't burdening the sheriff there to provide a jail facility for an independent agency that, very easily he could say, well, you have your own jail and you do, what you need to do. So.
Right. Yeah. No, and that was something that Representative Stringer brought up. That's, a very good point, because if they get out there and they decide they want to arrest 100 people and try to shove them all in the county prison, the county's like, hey, we're full. Yeah. We don't have anywhere to put them. And of course he acknowledged, they could have the same issue where they've got a sheriff go out and arrest somebody and bring them in and be like, hey, or a deputy, and come back and say, well, we don't have room. I think right now there's that synergy where they understand they work. A lot of times what they will do probably at the end of the day is, contract this out. I know our sheriff department, a lot of their part-time deputies, get hired by the churches, or some of them that need police protection or security. They will come out and work on a part-time basis. I don't believe this tribe has the funding to go full force and just hire a bunch of people and say, hey, here's cars, here's badges and guns. What they would do is, especially like on powwow days, or if they had a special event, they would bring these people in and hire them, or they may take one of their own tribal members that's APOS certified and, allow them to be, the policing power for that day, is what I anticipate. And that's kind of the direction that they've set. Obviously this, if the tribe were to grow, which is doubtful, that population is going to continue to decrease over time, I would assume. I don't foresee this thing, blowing up or getting bigger than what it is currently today.
Okay. Thank you.
My concern is, as I read this, the council tribe may employ one or more. Where do they get their continuing education hours and things like that? Do they fall under the umbrella of the sheriff? So you're hiring, and we're talking about probably not full-time, right? We're just talking about somebody that's APOS that works for the tribe.
Correct.
So, you've got these continuing education hours, qualifying and all that. Where would that happen? I mean, who would be the instructor? Who's getting them their hours, keeping them with their APOS certification intact?
It's not defined in here. I would assume that if this officer, under state, under the APOS certification is going to maintain that, they would have to continue to get it either on their own or if the tribe was going to pay for it. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
They didn't specifically say, but the requirements would be that they are, just like any other officer, APOS certified before they could be out there and be employed. So.
Representative Stringer?
And I think everybody is kind of saying similar things. One is, as a law enforcement officer, we want to maintain professionalism in our profession and
Sure.
make sure that. And some of the things I have seen is where you get somebody that's got a bad reputation or something. They can't get a job as a cop somewhere, and then they wind up walking around with a badge and a gun on from our local tribe. So we're trying to maintain the integrity of our profession.
And if you've got something that you want to put in here that you think would be helpful, I'm more than willing, because I'm not attempting to dilute, the integrity of law enforcement or minimize that in any way. That's not the goal of this. And I respect, our law enforcement and those that have served in that capacity. And so with your experience, if you've got something that you feel would kind of, secure this thing or, when it comes to the certification or training to make sure that that's maintained, I'd be glad to accept that and, make it a part of the bill.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And like Representative Bedsole said, main thing is just making sure we're not forcing something on our local sheriff.
Right.
I would like to see them in agreeance to make sure that they're
As a
okay.
former county commissioner and never knowing what the whole county jail was like and then learning about it and realizing that was the biggest, I'm not going to call it a burden, but the biggest spend in our budget, and during COVID when our jails were just overloaded and most of them were state prisoners, and we were like, hey, we need the room.
Yeah.
I'm definitely aware of that and don't want to put any pressure on our county that, they can't plan for and budget for. So.
Well, I appreciate your willingness to work with us and listen.
Yeah.
Any other questions from any members of the committee? If not, I'll entertain a motion for favorable report. Motion for favorable report, Representative Gray. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Bill has a favorable report.
Thank you, committee. Thank you, Chairman.
Entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion
It was
by
educational
Representative
for me
Shaver.
as well.
Adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? We're adjourned. Yeah, they're gonna have to have a mutual aid agreement with the sheriff. There's no way they can operate. They gotta go somewhere to the court, they gotta go somewhere to the jail, they gotta go, somewhere where they write tickets, I swear.
When this happened,